Sirat, are you able to?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, can hear you. Can you say a longer sentence? It was a little bit.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
It's a little bit soft from you. I don't know if you can turn the mic up a little bit, or you might need to speak a bit louder.
I'll try speaking a bit louder.
Okay, cool. Pratana?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear. Very good. Thank you all. We should be able to start on time, but we're still setting up a little bit. Thank you.
She could share directly. She can control it herself. Really? Yeah. And she shares her screen. To do that. Yeah. We'll make her.
Recording in progress.
Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Rumki Farhana. I work with Article 19 South Asia Regional Office, which is based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. It's an honor to welcome all of you who are joining us online and in person here to our discussion for the next hour on malicious convergence, addressing emerging trends of gendered hate speech in South Asia. This session will be conducted in hybrid mode, and I'll be moderating the session on site for you who are present here. A group of panelists are joining us virtually. We also have an online moderator, Shmaila Khan, who is the Director Research and Policy working for Digital Rights Foundation. I do welcome my colleagues who have joined us online, and would like to request Shmaila Khan to carry on. Shmaila, over to you.
Thank you, Rumki. And I don't know exactly what time it is, but good morning, good afternoon to everyone in the room. I'm just going to quickly introduce the purpose of the session and the format. So this session was actually sort of brought together by three organizations, Hashtag Generation, Digital Rights Foundation, and Point of View India. And it all came together when Rumki also agreed to co-facilitate with us. So with Article 19 also bringing in context from Bangladesh. And we had seen an uptick of online gender-based violence and also sort of online disinformation, which was emanating from an anti-gender organization and campaigning across South Asia. And we started to see similar patterns. And in order to sort of really get at the reasons and sort of the tactics being used, but also the ways in which institutions such as social media companies and law enforcement and other mechanisms of protection are also failing to both detect and address the harms emanating from this kind of online gender-based violence and gender hate speech. So today we'll be first starting out with going across South Asia with presentations from each of the panelists talking about the specific kind of gendered hate speech that is being experienced in Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, respectively. And then we're going to open up in the last half hour discussion within the group and within everybody who is joining us both virtually and on site. So if you have any questions or comments, you can hold on to those towards the end of the second half of the session. So I'm just going to hand over the floor to our first presenter, Sarita, who is going to be presenting on the context prevailing in Sri Lanka and the ways in which gendered hate speech is organizing and manifesting itself online. Over to you, Sarita.
Thank you, Shmaila. Good morning, Aibovan and Vanakkam to everybody. It's about 4:38 a.m. I do apologize for my voice. I hope I'm audible. I'm struggling with a bit of seasonal cold. So I'm Sarita. I'm the Programs and Research Lead at in Hashtag Generation in Sri Lanka. So just to set the scene, Hashtag does what we call social media monitoring and analysis as part of our day-to-day operation. And something we found, particularly in this year, was the manifestation of a very organized and concerted wave of harassment, hate speech, and particularly disinformation against LGBTIQ plus people and women. Obviously, nothing new, but we felt that this was particularly of notice to us, which is also why we approached, POV and DRF to really see if there were parallels happening across the region. So in Sri Lanka, according to latest research, 1 in 4 people know a friend who experienced harassment of a sexual nature, but some reports also say that it could be as high as 62%, particularly when including queer, trans, gender and fluid people. Now, obviously, we also have a lot of manifest issues with access to technology and digital literacy in Sri Lanka. There's a vast gender gap in access to technological devices and infrastructure. There's also a big gender gap in who is able to safely navigate the internet and digital spaces. And for queer and trans people, as is the case in a lot of South Asia, while Sri Lanka is very behind on legislation and sort of legitimizing these identities, I think particularly the internet has become a bit of a safe space for self-expression, despite facing exacerbated risk and exposure of harassment as well. So to set the scene, I think after last year, after the 2022 anti-government protests in Sri Lanka, I think a key part of that was the mass mobilization of protesters, particularly using social media, the social media space. This meant that in what we call the post-protest period that we are living in right now, the surveillance over the digital space has also increased exponentially. There's been a lot of renewed interest in legislating around the digital space, particularly there's been rumors of a fake news bill. We have a cybersecurity bill that's been drafted right now. We passed the data protection bill sometime late last year. And these legislations have been cause for concern. The cybersecurity bill, for example, establishes what you call a cybersecurity regulatory authority, which is really empowered with sweeping powers to search devices and what they call key national digital infrastructures, information infrastructures, which would have serious impact on public health, public safety, privacy, national security, international stability, or on the effective functioning of the government or the economy of Sri Lanka. Now, this is directly from the cybersecurity bill, and they provide sweeping powers with this broad span of grounds for them to do this. And of course, populist politics have cited the digital safety of women and children as the grounds to bring in stricter laws to govern the digital space. So, in the middle of all of this, we had a private member's bill that was proposed in August of 2022 to repeal sections 365 and 365A of the Penal Code, which are used to criminalize homosexuality, to arrest, detain, torture, like sexually harass queer and trans people in this country. When this bill was proposed, there was a lot of resistance from nationalist political actors. But what we saw, particularly on the digital space, was the resurgence of nationalist actors who had gone underground in 2022. A lot of new pages and groups set up explicitly anti-LGBT, with explicitly anti-LGBTIQ plus messaging and titles. I'm very sorry I can't show my presentation. There was an issue with the portal. But there was a significant and rapid increase in hate speech targeting queer and trans people. Particularly, what we noticed was the use of disinformation, clear gender disinformation to target this group. This included, talking about how being queer and trans meant that it was a mental disorder, that it was sexual deviancy, that homosexuality was a mental illness. There was also claims how these falsified statistics of how queer and trans people increased the numbers of HIV/AIDS in the country. Very clear gender disinformation that also inculcated a lot of hate speech. Parallel developments to this were the influx of pages and groups that were also anti-feminist, which was very interesting to us. This, we kind of tried to see, some of it also sprung quite organically. Others sprung because a lot of women and feminist activists were advocating for LGBTIQ plus people. Again, there was a lot of conversation on the supposed impact or the destruction to culture that feminism brought about. And this really culminated in May when comedian Natasha Ediri-Surya was faced with a wave of misogynistic speech, threats, a lot of doxing, there was a lot of ableist slurs used, and a lot of anti-feminist language, all based on an out-of-context clip of one of her stand-up comedy sets. It must be noted she was previously targeted by these same actors, and the claim was, and in the end she was arrested on the claims that she defamed Buddhism through her performance. And here we see the resurgence of interest in laws around social media once again on the basis of protecting religious harmony. Again, here there was a lot of disinformation. There was one particularly concerning disinformation that was used, claiming that she tried to take her own life several times, and how this is indicative of how the quote unquote mentally ill were attempting to destroy this country. Very, very, very much like the harassment that was faced by queer and trans people. So I'm almost out of time, so we'll get to this in the Q&A. I think my sort of position here is that we really need to reform or sort of reframe how we think about combating gendered harms, particularly gendered hate speech, because no longer is it just direct hate speech. I think often we fall into the trap of siloing hate speech from disinformation. But disinformation has now become a modality to actually push gendered harm through. But then the danger of it, really, more than hate speech, is that populist states and fascist politics actually has a symbiotic relationship with disinformation. And in that sense, I think so. Platform accountability really has to take this into account. That it no longer has to be about combating gendered hate speech. It really has to look at how the way disinformation is being used to push these narratives, these hateful narratives. We can get to more in the Q&A. With that, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Prarthana from Point of View India. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita. Hello and good morning, everyone. I'm Pratna. I'm a knowledge and ecosystems anchor at Point of View, an organization based in India that works towards building safe and inclusive digital spaces. For my presentation, I'm going to focus on gender and online gender-based violence in India, particularly the emerging manifestations and modalities of online hate speech. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that this is 2023 and all eyes are on of big tech are on a lot of South Asian countries, India in particular, with its 700 million active internet users, generating a revenue of about $175 billion in 2022, expected to shoot up to $1 trillion by 2030. So in this context, I felt that it was important to locate what kind of behaviors and content are being seen and, more importantly, being pushed and sponsored in various ways. I'll be looking at coordinated trolling of women and sexual minorities on social media around the time of key policy and political debate. Also look at the use of tech-facilitated disinformation, like my colleague Sarita, that was used to fuel discord and misogyny, and talk a bit about content moderation and recommendation systems on these platforms and how they too amplify anti-feminist rhetoric, right? So I'm going to share 4 case stories from the last 2 years to validate what my fellow panelists are also mapping in their respective countries. That is the connections between the larger men's rights project and the lack of political will to address these problems, and also try and flag the gap in platform accountability and legislative framework. So in keeping with the trends in the global manosphere, some key flashpoints for new regressive patterns of hate speech in India that I've noticed were during the marital rape and the marriage equality hearings. When the Delhi High Court was hearing a bunch of petitions seeking to criminalize marital rape in 2022, it had triggered a lot of MRA activity on social media from organizations posing under benign titles like Save India Family Foundation. Trolls were attacking feminist activists, lawyers, allies heavily at the time. This despite the fact that crimes against women had grown by over 15% in 2021, particularly domestic violence. A recent study conducted by the Michigan University also found that this action on Twitter around the marital rape case began before the actual court deliberation, suggesting that the goal, and I quote here, is to influence public opinion around it prior to the judgment, end quote. The same patterns repeated this year when the Supreme Court was hearing petitions on marriage equality. It is worth noting that the state thinks that this matter should be legislated by the parliament rather than decided by the court. So without the political will, marriage equality failed also to pass muster. And what was really interesting is that around the same time, online smear campaigns from Twitter users sharing very identical posts, further amplified by the recommendation algorithms, of course, began claiming that a positive verdict in this case would negatively impact the family ecosystem. It's not a part of Indian culture, but rather a Western concept. And when the Chief Justice said that, very historically said that the gender should not be defined in an absolute sense in today's world, in the course of this hearing, he too became the subject of intense trolling. Another instance very recently saw the use of fake news to weaponize rape in Manipur's ongoing civil war. In a state where mob-led gun violence is underway and the internet has been shut down, and this is a very important point to note, as India is the world's biggest internet shutdown offender. So in a state with no internet for over 100 days and counting, hard copy prints of screenshots depicting sexual violence against women falsely purported to be Meitei women had been circulated early May to stoke heinous crimes of revenge against Kuki women. And I will end with an incident which those of us in the gender rights space witnessed back in 2021 when one of us, a trans lawyer, prominent trans lawyer and activist, was relentlessly trolled online for contributing to the implementation of the center's new education policy, gatekeeping and excluding LGBTQ voices and experiences from mainstream spaces like higher education institutions or medical education or STEM education is nothing new. It continues even to this day. But the fact that trans activists cannot occupy space on the internet without anonymity should really make us question who has the privilege of visibility, who gets to loiter on digital spaces and express themselves freely, and why is only a certain conception of transness that conforms to the normative idea of what a trans person should look like or professionally be doing be allowed safe passage, while others are objectified and dehumanized to no end. So coordinated gendered hate speech intersecting with ethno-nationalist agendas such as these incidents that I just referred to are often fueled by gaps in legislative legal frameworks. We'll get to that in the Q&A when I'm hoping for more reflections from my esteemed guests on the experiences and insights from their respective contexts as well. But really what emboldens such behavior patterns, and this is something I wanted to highlight, is the lack of basic punitive action. And if we were to take a recent example, the men accused of staging virtual auctions for prominent Muslim women on the Sulli Deals GitHub page and the Bully by app are all out on bail, despite there being prima facie evidence against them. And then, of course, there's a recommendation algorithm on social media platforms, also working to favor or amplify or push the posts that tend to receive more engagement on these platforms, also bringing to question how content moderation policies deployed by these tech companies work. I'll end here, but I'm hoping to hear more reflections from you all before passing on the mic to Seerat Khan from Digital Rights Foundation Pakistan to share some insights from her practice and experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prathna and Saritha, for the wonderful presentation. I hope I'm audible. My name is Seerat Khan. I'm from Digital Rights Foundation, and I'm going to be sharing about Pakistan and the gendered hate speech that we've been witnessing in Pakistan over the last couple of months that has just accelerated a lot. So just to start off with giving some context, Pakistan ranks as not free in the Freedom of House report on freedom of the net, and we rank as 26 out of 100 countries, in which we see how the report focuses on obstacle to access to the internet, limits on the content and violations of the users on the internet. Pakistan has a wide variety of problems related to the internet around internet shutdowns, data privacy, and an increasing trend in gendered hate speech. Women experiences and gendered minorities experiences on the internet are very different from the men in the country, and they are usually subjected to self-censoring themselves online most of the times. And it is important to highlight that women and marginalized communities, particularly sexual minorities in the country, resort to self-censorship in terms of the pictures and videos that they're sharing, in terms of the actual lived experiences that they have in their country. And it doesn't matter if a picture is explicit or not, or if there is, or if a video is explicit or not. If, for instance, a picture is being used without anybody's consent, then it can be a problem for women and gender minorities in the country. BRF is an organization. We have a cyber harassment helpline which we launched back in December 2016, and we receive a range of cases from across Pakistan around online harassment. We provide 3 basic services, which are legal assistance, digital security assistance, and psychosocial well-being to the complainants who reach out to us. And since December 2016, the helpline has received around 14,376 cases. 59% of these cases have been from women. And it is, I just want to highlight that this is a helpline that a non-profit organization in the country has started. We have limited resources, but despite that, we have seen the increasing number of cases that around cyber harassment that we've been getting throughout the years. And these cases range from NCII, non-consensual intimate images, NCP, non-consensual pornography, NCUI, non-consensual use of information, fake profiles, hacking attempts, blackmailing, and threatening messages. The helpline has also received a considerable number of cases from the transgender community, and in 2022 alone, the helpline received around 58.6% of cases from women, and the transgender community in 2022, we had around 1% approximately complainants who reached out to us. But I just want to highlight that the figures that I've mentioned earlier do not represent the actual impact of online harassment in the country. Again, as I mentioned, that we are a non-profit organization and we have limited resources. Most people do not know that we are available as a resource to them. And most cases of online harassment do go underreported in the country because of the backlash that people face when they file online harassment complaints with law enforcement agencies in the country. The law enforcement agencies in Pakistan are not, unfortunately, sensitized enough, and the time response that they have in catering to a cyber harassment complaint is very subjective to the amount of power that you have. So it's actually very difficult to file a complaint in the country. Moving on, I'd just like to focus more now towards what has been happening in terms of gender disinformation in the country. In 2018, Pakistan passed one of the most progressive acts in the world, I think, which was the Transgender Persons Protection Act. The act itself allows transgender people equal rights to education, basic health facilities, writing their transgender identity on their identity cards and passports, and gives them the right to vote and contest elections. In August 2022, last year, a smear campaign started against the act, and the law itself was passed in 2018. So in 2022, two political parties, Jamaat-e-Islami and another political party called the Jamaat-e-Ulema Islami Fazl, argued that the law was against the teachings of Islam and challenged it in the federal Shariat court. Now, once they started campaigning and an orchestrated campaign started taking place, we saw an increase and a rise in against transgender activists in the country and also transgender individuals in general. We saw that they were subjected to violence online and offline, and the threats were very graphic in nature. And they had to, on multiple incidents, self-censor themselves, and even holding events that were public, they had to be cancelled because of this particular campaign that was started online. What was interesting to see was that women influencers and certain women figures started debates around how the act was an attack to family systems in the country and launched an entire campaign against the community. And in May this year, the Federal Shariat Court of Islamabad ruled under the Section 2F, 3, and 7 of the Transgender Act 2018 that relate to gender identity, the right to self-perceived gender identity, and the right of inheritance for transgender people do not conform with the interpretations of Islamic principles. The court ceased with immediate effect the sections deemed as unnecessary. So a law was passed, but after this orchestrated campaign online, we saw how the Federal Shariat Court intervened, and it actually did rule out the sections 2F, 3, and 7 of the Transgender Act. And arguments used by the Shariat Court were particularly interesting because it highlighted how it used women and it pinned women against transgender individuals in the country and used it as an excuse that if transgender individuals have access to spaces, women's spaces in the country, then women will not be feeling safe. This was an argument that a lot of women influencers also took forward, and which also resulted in a lot of attacks that transgender influencers and transgender individuals in the country started facing. Most people, I'd also like to highlight that most people in the country do not understand gender, do not understand binary. Some people also use intersex individuals against transgender individuals and do not know the differentiation between the two. So creating a category of biologically valid community as a foil for the transgender community. And this is something that we've been witnessing for quite some time now, but now there's more debate around it. Some individuals from the transgender community also argued that they would not like to be associated with the act, which led to more disinformation and misinformation and led to more hate speech online. Any content that we've been receiving from the transgender community, we've been escalating it to social media companies. But again, I'd like to highlight that this is something that a non-profit organization is doing and with limited resources and means. And right now, the biggest challenge that we face when we do get cases like these are from big tech companies. Law enforcement agencies and state is already going having a crackdown against transgender individuals, but we also see that big tech companies do not respond back in a time sensitive manner or do not take cases of gendered minorities or transgender individuals seriously. We also witness that now that a law has been overturned, we would like big tech companies to acknowledge that power that the conversation around overturning this law took place on big tech companies itself, on social media itself. So social media companies have the power to influence people when it comes to gendered disinformation online. And we do see that with AI and algorithms being, and because the overall theme of APrIGF this year is emerging technologies, and this is something that I've also highlighted in a couple of other sessions, that emerging technologies is great, but something that we really need to revisit of how we're going to see it in the Asia Pacific, because of the fact that algorithms and AI can also be used against certain genders, and we can't rule that out uh, at all at this point. I think I'd give the floor to Rumki, because I would be happy to answer all the other questions in the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Sirat. Whatever I'll be saying, that will be a reflection from Article 19. Article 19 works for freedom of expression, right to information very broadly, but we do focus very specifically on particular themes that goes for protection, that goes for ensuring accountability, transparency, media freedom, combating hate speech, sexual diversity, ensuring human rights, equal rights for diversified people who belongs to other identities, sexual identities other than men, women, and we work on digital security, digital safety, ensuring civic space, civic rights, and many more. So coming to the point of gendered hate speech in South Asia, particularly in Bangladesh, I'll start sharing with you about the legal framework that does exist in Bangladesh. If we say whether it is helping to ensuring the anti-discrimination, yes, but it's no as well. So there is one strong Anti-Discrimination Act in Bangladesh, as per the Constitution, Bangladesh Constitution, Article 28. It says that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, or places of birth. And the second one is women shall have equal rights with men in all spheres of the state and of public life. That ensures the equality. There is another High Court writ that says that issued a guideline to prevent sexual harassment of women and children in all governmental and non-governmental institutions of the country, including educational institutes. And it says that there shall be a committee that will be report where any women, children, they will be reporting. And our experience, our random experience from Article 19, we did a mapping in the last couple of years. We realized that this writ is there, the law is there, but the execution of this law, this act is not anywhere. It doesn't exist in a, like, we cannot count the percentage actually that how much it is helping, it is being implemented. There is another revolutionary act compared to the social context in Bangladesh that has been enacted that says in November 2013, the government announced the recognition of Hijra as third gender category in all national documents and passports, those who are other than men and women. Actually, the term is like female mind in a masculine body, and the term that the government declared is third gender rights. Okay, so third gender itself is a discriminatory term, and it is not inclusive actually with any other sexual identities other than men, women. And on the contrary of the Constitution, Article 28, there is this 377 penal code that prohibiting citizen right to sexually diversified people. So the people who will be claiming or declaring themselves, expressing their identities other than men, women, and hijras, that will be a criminal offense by law. So it is like it's an 153-year-old colonial law that has been carried out until now. So these are the legal framework that ensures and prohibits the right, the citizen right, the civic right, and human rights overall. And culturally, politically, socially, there is some example I'll share with you. There is one political party, established political party, and their constitution says that women in politics and leadership is prohibited. Women shall not play any role in a leadership position as state head in anywhere or as a leader of the political party. So this is a systematic mechanism. I'd rather say that it's people are working on that. It is being nourished, and somehow it does exist because of the socio-cultural context. Article 19 about online harassment, if we talk about, Article 19 observes media monitoring. We do conduct media monitoring on an everyday daily basis, and our observation says, like, if we go for particularly journalists, talk about journalists, that online harassment, trolling, hate speech for the women journalists, and to be very specific, those who are on the electronic media, it's enormous and it's ugly. It goes until there is no level that that can be tolerated, and it is not being punished, addressed. It is a practice that goes on. And what we do about Article 19 actually advocates for intersectional gender approach that is more inclusive, that includes men, women, and any other identities that people belong to. And for that, we recommend, we advocate for incorporating this intersectional gender approach in policies, strategies, legal framework, and in practice everywhere within all the mechanism, like in workplace, outside workplace, in the system, in government mechanism, and everywhere. So couple of recommendations that we have been advocating for, I'd like to share with you is, number one is increased capacity building on women's and all other sexually diversified people's human rights, non-discrimination and gender-based violence among key actors, including policymakers, the judiciary, and law enforcement personnel. Number two, we would recommend for mainstreaming a gender and intersectional approach into the design, budgeting, and implementation of all policies, protocols, mechanisms on the safety issue in a way that takes into account the different risk factors and the need to end structural discrimination, inequality, and unequal power relations. The third one is about promoting broader recognition and an authoritative definition of online gender-based violence in line with international human rights law and in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, so that gendered online attacks are not disregarded, normalized, and rendered invisible. We'd like to recommend to sign and ratify ILO Convention number 190 concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work, which recognizes the right of everyone to a world of work free from violence and harassment, including gender-based and online violence and harassment, and its domestication into national law. So we'd love to address more if there is any further question comes from you. So this is I'm opening the floor for the question answer session. So if there is any question, please raise your hand and we can talk.
Okay, hello, thank you. This is very great opportunity to participate in as a, questionnaire. Yeah, my name is Kyung Myo, working at Open Korea as a researcher. I want to emphasize that I'm also a feminist, and I just want to share the South Korea situation related with the session's topic. Yeah, gender disinformation has happened in South Korea either, and it has been very serious social problem. Yeah, I can take two different cases. One is the gender disinformation for current First Lady Connie Kim. Actually, there was a rumor that she was a high-class call girl called Julie, dealing with male politicians. Yeah, amid the presidential election 2022, a person who opposed to Yoon Suk-yeol drew a mural of a woman who looked like her, the First Lady, and several men next to her, and wrote down the word Julie's man. It was criticized her for not qualifying as First Lady based on sexual purity. I agree with the claim that she doesn't deserve to be a First Lady. However, it was not because of her sexual purity, but because of her suspicion of stock price manipulation. The second one is validating the ideology of female game illustrator. If there is a female game illustrator, might be validating the ideology of female if there is a female game illustrator, might be inclined to express her interest on feminism. For instance, sharing feminism books or retweet the image of t-shirt with the sentence, "Princess don't need prince." South Korean male game users often stigmatize her as a feminist and push the companies to fire her, so she can get the chance to renew the contract and drop dropped from the labor market due to her bad reputation. Yeah, South Korea is serious male-centric society, so women are always devalued with this information based on the sexuality or sexual purity and gender ideology. And I've read the report, The Perspectives on Gender Disinformation, and I absolutely agree with the idea on the role of media houses. In South Korea society, there is also a strong criticism of media coverage that emphasize only the sensationalized part of the event. However, the problem of devaluing women through sexual purity is not easily solved. Yeah, I believe that in order to solve the problem of generated disinformation, we need to solve the problem sexual purity that only applies to women. I think the very idea of using women's sexual purity as a basis for attack should be neutralized. In Korea, there are attempts to break the link link between women and sexual purity. Of course, it's not actively happening. For example, relevant social society organizations do not deny women's desire to have sex and argue that the society should approach to women's desire to have safe sex as a human right. This includes the right to take comprehensive sex education, the right to access proper health care for sexually transmitted infection, and the right to choose to continue to terminate a pregnancy. In 2020, there were several incidents where teenage girls were blackmailed and sexually exploited by men after sharing content expressing their sexual curiosity and desire on internet. It results in their personal information being exposed. While young women condemned the man who committed the crime, they also criticized the lack of safe spaces for teenage girls to express their sexual needs and curiosity due to the prejudice that female adolescents should be sexually ignorant. It emphasized that teenage women were denied their sexual rights. This argument challenged patriarchal society, which often blamed women who were not sexually pure when they were sexually assaulted. I think, that's all I can say about the situation in South Korea in relation to the topic session. And I think I want to ask if this solve can be adapted in Southeast countries also. And that is my question.
Are you asking it to someone specific? You want it from any representative? Okay. So I'll be asking on the board if anyone is willing to take the question. Sirat or Sarita, Prarthana, do you want to address it or?
Sorry, could the question be repeated?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, actually, to neutralize the sexual purity of women. Yeah, actually in South Korea, it happened already, and that is not actively, but yeah, some activists think that is core solution. So I wonder, is it adaptable to Southeast country? Because, those countries are more conservative or more patriarchal. Yes.
Before I throw it out to the panel, I would like to say that it is adaptable, and legal mechanism is very much important to establish practice. It is the best practice is like, it's an example of best practice that you have adopted it. It will take time maybe for having the implementation, but if we can adopt it, yes, that will be another leading way. Yes, over to you if anyone wants to add anything.
I think I can just speak from Pakistan's experience. there is, I think I do understand your question, but I do think South Asian countries, and again, just speaking from experience, that they are more conservative in nature, so it's very difficult sometimes to adapt to a lot of mechanisms that work in the Southeast Asian side. And I do think the context is very, very different because we are more there's more patriarchy. It's embedded in the systems that we use. It's embedded in the state in itself, and not just for gendered minorities, against women, against anybody who does not follow the stereotypical gendered stereotypes that we have in the country. So I do think there is a lot of structural issues that need to be addressed in the country first, and this is from the state level and from an individual level as well. And then we can move on to a lot of other things. Right now, honestly, the biggest challenge that we face is wearing the clothes that we want to wear, going out and having access to public spaces. That's honestly, there is a problem around that also. Like, women cannot use public spaces as good as well as men do in the country, and that's also a problem. And we see that being replicated in online spaces. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, at least in Pakistan. That's what I can say.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone have any other question? I think there is.
Yeah, and also just a note, there are 2 hands up in the Zoom room.
Okay, yeah. So
I'd really like to thank all of the speakers for wonderfully insightful talks about these issues, very, very important issues. My perspective is slightly different. In Australia, we are about to have a referendum to give our Indigenous people the right to have more of a say in policies that affect them. And as a result of that, there has been terrible hate speech based on racism to many, many Indigenous people. And I just wondered what the speakers' views were. Do you think that racist hate speech and information has exactly the same potential solutions as the gender-based and the transsexuals-based discrimination that you've talked about, or are there other elements as well that come into racist hate speech?
Again, before throwing it to the panel, I would like to say, to establish any legal mechanism, we all do have shared responsibilities. Like the High Court writ I shared with you about Bangladesh, there is this mechanism, but it is not being practiced. Particularly if I talk about the media houses, we have examples, case studies about these, starting from protesting to execution of this High Court writ. It doesn't exist. There is no committee. And if we go back, there is example that when someone raises their voice or protest against any sort of sexual harassment, we have our experience that she lost her job. For years, she didn't get any job in any media houses. Article 19 took initiative to train her and provide her job, and she's now well established. That's another thing. But she had to go through a tough time. So this is how what I wanted to say, that is shared responsibility of every actor. So when I'm not being able to avail my right, I need to raise my voice, I need to record it, I need to report it, do the documentation, monitoring, and follow it up. And continuously, we need to raise our voice to establish at least what we do avail from the
Rumki, I'm so sorry. Given the limited time, I'd really like to take that question.
Please.
Given that hashtag, there's a lot of social media listening on both ethno-nationalist hate speech and gendered hate speech, right? So something I wanted to actually bring up, but then didn't have enough time, was actually about platform accountability when it comes to this type of messaging. I fully agree that the modalities are very much the same. And I think in my presentation, I made it very clear that gendered hate speech and disinformation is proliferated by ethno-nationalist actors in service of the state agenda. So one thing we really saw this time around, for example, claims that LGBTIQ plus people or queer and transgender identities are a mental illness, right? First of all, there's scientific evidence that this is not the case. There's established psychiatric evidence that this is not the case. And this has been there for decades on end, right? But when now during COVID, we saw when COVID disinformation was on these platforms, a lot of platforms, particularly meta platforms, put a label saying, hey, this information is not verified or this is disinformation. But we don't see that for any gender disinformation or ethno-racial or ethno-nationalist disinformation. It is quite unacceptable given the work that organizations like hashtag, like POV, like BRF have been doing for years with in close like connection and the labor we put into actually informing social media platforms about these trends, but they can't even do the bare minimum of putting a label saying, hey, maybe don't trust this information, right? We're not asking for censorship, but we're saying that the modalities are very much the same, and we can no longer fight these things in silos. We can't look at gender disinformation without looking at its connection to ethno-nationalist discourse. And I think Prarthana and Seerat both brought this up as well. They are part of the same machinery, which is about censorship around certain bodies, right? And there's a big connection with it to either preventing progressive legislation, structural changes from going through, or actually enforcing quite restrictive legislative mechanisms that are designed by design to curtail expression of citizens in South Asian countries. So absolutely. And I think the solutions can no longer be, oh, we address ethno-nationalist hate speech one way, but we do it different in the gendered disinformation. No, we really need to look at the intersecting connections between the two and address it more holistically. I think that was sort of the point of us bringing up this panel as well, when we really talked about what we wanted to say in this panel. That really was the intervention. And we really hope to take it forward because it we've been working in silos thus far and we've had very limited success. So perhaps it's time to reframe and rethink our approaches, particularly given that platforms, I think, the way they function, the way their community guidelines function, the way they moderate and regulate their content further enables this siloing. And that is something we need to fight, push back against as advocates, as people working in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Okay. Could you please read it out, the online questions?
KS, perhaps you can just unmute and please go ahead.
Yes. Southeast Asian organizations had their own content moderation policy session yesterday. We also talked about this. I think convergence of disinformation, I think we'll go even beyond, we will go even further than recognizing convergence of disinformation and hate speech. I think that disinformation, if we apply the dominant international, under dominant international human rights law, disinformation by itself cannot be moderated by the state, by the states. False news crimes have been roundly criticized by international human rights communities so far, but it is the crossroad. It is the intersection with hate speech where disinformation needs to be remedied. So someone talked about racist hate speech. Someone talked about and this session is about gendered hate speech. It is where disinformation meets hate speech, well, we need our work, our non-siloing opening up of solutions, sharing of the solutions. And when we do that, I mean, it was a few days ago that Internews issued a report that Trusted Flaggers program of Meta is broken. I think, I mean, it's my guess. One of the non-responsiveness, one of the reasons for non-responsiveness of the platform is the siloing of the categories. When something comes in, they try to check the boxes on this information, and then when they see one box non-checked for well, I don't know, a likelihood of harm, they say, oh, okay, this is not this information, and then they look at they compare it to the checklist for hate speech, and then they cannot complete all the boxes. Then oh, okay, it's not it's not hate speech requiring moderation. You should not do that. The platforms don't have to work like a government. They don't have to emulate government. Platforms can go beyond that. Platforms are not parties to international human rights law that are in many ways protective of free speech too much. The platforms can go beyond that and try to make a safe space for their users. And I think that's where we need to strike, so to speak. And if we just focus our efforts on 100% harm-based principle, instead of trying to cut up the harmful speech space into different categories like the governments do, we can achieve more. Thank you. I'll stop there.
If I can just jump in here, Rumke. Thank you, Professor Park. Very glad to have you here, of course. I completely agree with you. We need a trauma-informed redressal mechanism, which is just not banking on legal frameworks or law enforcement frameworks, because these have known to fail a lot of the times in terms of ensuring justice, mainly restorative justice for survivors of gender hate speech violence, which have often spilled over into offline harm and bodily harm as well, right, in many cases. And I'm glad that you brought up content moderation as well, because a recent study, and this is something I really wanted to highlight when I thought I was running a little over time in my presentation, was that a recent media investigation of how call centers and human moderators, like we always say, right, we tend to think that moderation is automated, but there is a human intervention element to it as well. But the way it has been gamified and made a competitive environment, so, the way call centers work in India is that, a single human moderator reviews close to 6,000 posts that are reported every day in a single day, which is absurd. It does not give you enough time. It gives you around 4 seconds to review complaints. And which is why, when you tend to get on that spree of reporting complaint after complaint, and you get back, the same sort of run-of-the-mill response, it's due to this reason as well. And speaking of how disinformation, just to address that previous question as well, which is really interesting, because I grapple with that myself. How do I sort of correlate and find solutions for racist hate speech and gender hate speech, and just trying to bring those together as well, because that's what our work at COV is also about. We work with, for example, constituencies like sex workers, right? And often, because of historical reasons, they are from lower caste. So how do I deal with the casteist violence that they face with sort of, gendered violence that they face online as well in their mode of work, because a lot of that has shifted online. And just to bring that into the fore, I wanted to talk about one particular example of how a recent Media Matters report, if I'm not mistaken, found that a lot of trans
we need to wrap up. Yeah,
no worries. I'll just put it in the playlist. I'll share on chat. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So do we have any more time for any other questions?
I just have the short input, because based on a session that we had yesterday as well, exploring youth social media content creation, and I think culture is a good point where we can intersect on this topic, because different cultures may have different definitions of what hate speech is. And the example you gave just now on the term hisjas, the feminine mindset in the masculine body, why couldn't it be the other way around? And why isn't that included in the conversation? So that's just something I'd like to add. Thanks.
Okay, what I want to tell you, addressing that is the question actually we have been raising up, and we have been giving objection and conducting our advocacy that it shall be very inclusive and the right shall be availed by everyone, regardless any categorization. Any other question, or do we have any more time? So thank you very much everyone for being engaged into the discussion, and thank you for sharing your ideas, thoughts and experiences. I do thank all the participants and guests who have joined us online. I thank my panel, and thank you APrIGF for giving us the floor to share our thoughts and ideas. Thank you very much.
The next session in this room is going to happen in 5 minutes. It's going to be G20 in India and digital inclusion, the impact of shutdowns. See you everyone in 5 minutes.
Good job. Yeah, was it good? It was okay. Yeah, I'm afraid that I spent too long.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good morning and welcome to this session. And I'm glad that people who are physically present here and also people who are online. So this session is the fight against internet shutdowns and the role of multilateral fora like G20. I think India is going to host G20 soon, as far as I understand. And we have five, including me, speakers. So we have Radhika Jhalani, Usma Khilji, myself, Wave Theo Mint, and Narmata Maheshwari with us speaking online. So I will introduce the speakers one after another, and you will get a little bit more about why we are presenting this session about the shutdowns and the role of G20 or fora such as G20. So our first speaker today is Radhika Jhalani. Radhika Jhalani is a counsel of SFLC in a legal service organization that works to protect freedom in the digital world in India. SFLC represents people's interest in the technology space through education, research, policy engagement, and the provision of legal services. Altogether, we have 1 hour time. Can I invite Radhika to take over and introduce us to the subject and other issues that we are going to discuss today? Radhika, please.
Radhika, I can step in here if you'd like. Great.
Yes,
Thank you
Radhika.
so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Farooq Faisal. I'm really happy you were able to join us. Thank you all to everybody present there in person and those who are joining online. I'm sure for those of us online, it's early in the morning or late in the night, so I really appreciate you taking the time. Well, I'll get us started. The story of internet shutdowns in Asia entails violation of rights, continuing impunity, and damaging effects on democracy as well as employment and the economy. They often throw a curtain over the ground realities in regions going through conflict in a way that hampers reporting and shields abuse. It is also one that is plagued with dichotomies. Digital services and promises for greater inclusion are on the rise, but so are efforts to block access to the internet or specific social media platforms. The scale of impacted communities in Asia, the rise of the tech sector, and the considerable user bases for online platforms, as well as government provided online services, are at odds with the rampant shutdowns that deprive people of the ability to exercise their rights and avail of essential services. As Asian countries prepare to take the center stage at various international fora like the G20 and other summits, which, as Mr. Farooq Faisal mentioned, India is presiding over this year, this is a reconciliation that must be made. To shed more light on this issue, we have with us experts from India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Pakistan, where access is often blocked. I'll quickly introduce the other speakers. Osama Khilji is the director of Bolobhi, a not-for-profit organization working on advocacy, policy, and research in the areas of gender rights, internet access, digital security, and privacy in Pakistan. Mr. Farooq Faisal, who you just heard from, is the regional director for Bangladesh and the South Asia region at Article 19, with over 2 decades of experience in international development, journalism, communications, and other fields. Wayfio Mint is the Asia Pacific Policy Analyst at Access Now, an international organization working to defend and extend digital rights and free speech globally. She has been instrumental for digital rights advocacy on Myanmar. And finally, I'm your moderator, Namrata Maheshwari. I'm Policy Counsel at Access Now, and I lead our work in the South Asian region. It's lovely to be here, and again, we'll have 1 hour in all. We will try to reserve time towards the end for questions from the audience. So please feel free to note them as you think of them. Radhika, I'd like to perhaps start with you. I'm just going to fix my view so that I can see you on my screen.
Right.
And while I do that, Mr. Farooq Faisal, can you hear me clearly there?
Again? Can you hear me?
Can you hear? Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So what did you ask me?
Is my audio clear there?
Yes, your audio is very clear.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Radhika, emerging technologies and digital inclusion seem to be at the heart of India's commitment to the G20. India has also been ranked #1 on digital payments globally, and yet it has remained the country with the highest number of shutdowns for 5 years in a row. How can one understand these twin impulses to digitize public services on one hand and use shutdowns to stop people's access to internet services on the other hand?
Right. Thanks, Amrita, for your question. And thank you, everyone, for joining this early and this late at night. I like to think of shutdowns as knee-jerk reactions, right? It's we all countries across the globe are trying to sort of fight against misinformation and disinformation. The path that India has chosen, sorry, is of cutting down access to internet, right? Even with like the smallest of things, for example, cheating in examinations, for example, small public order situations, internet shutdowns are way to other things that we pull, right? The way I think it's easy. I don't think that people really understand the impact. The authorities don't really understand the impact of shutdowns, what they do, right? There, as you said, there are a lot of our economy is informal economy. You would see these street hawkers, street peddlers on the streets taking UPI payments. UPI payments would be an equivalent of PayPal payments, that you just scan a code and you pay. None of us, especially after the demonetization exercise, have, keep a lot of cash on us because payments are easy, right? But shutdowns, and unfortunately, the only argument that the government seem to understand are of an economic angle. So if you give them a number that, hey, listen, this is the this is the net loss that's that happens when we shut down the internet, that's something that they might be able to understand. The unfortunate part is that there are no comprehensive studies. Internet shutdowns are also a recent phenomena. If you see in India, according to the tracker that we maintain, and according to all the Access Now Keep It On reports, we've had a 758 shutdowns in India since 2012. Right now, we are on 66 shutdowns in 2023 itself. The number is a lot. If you categorically look at it, you will understand that in some part of India, there is one internet shutdown per day. The numbers are scary, but also I mean, our government of India doesn't even maintain an official record of shutdowns. And that has been answered in the parliament multiple times. There's no record of the losses. There's no study. There's no investment in resources to understand what internet shutdowns do. And there is also no sort of will to figure out alternatives to it. Everybody is dealing with hate speech. I understand that the country is is very diverse, and there are always communal tensions on high, but internet shutdowns are definitely not the way, including selective banning of internet, which government is now resorting to. Over to you, Namrata.
Thank you, Radhika. Mr. Farooq Faisal, if I could come to you next, please. Bangladesh has also made headlines for throttling internet access, sometimes to undermine protests and rallies, sometimes in other contexts. This collusion between what the law enforcement authorities or government authorities are trying to achieve and telecom service providers who they chalk it up to infrastructural lapses. It also undermines democracy as a whole. What local narratives are being tried to be suppressed here? And is there any way that the impact of shutdowns is made worse by existing what have been called draconian legislations like the Digital Services Act?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And in Bangladesh, we are also noticing what happened in Kashmir when the conflict started and the shutdown happened. And in Bangladesh, the shutdown happened with the refugees that took shelter from Myanmar in Bangladesh. But Bangladesh government, because this is kind of the legitimacy of this current government is very in question. And though Bangladesh is not a member of G20, but the Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina hopefully going to Delhi to attend G20 this year. So Bangladesh government, current government is in power for 15 years and they hope to continue for that. You're saying not 15 years? Yes, yeah, this government is here for 15 years and they want to contest again next election, which is coming in January. And they want, if they could, take the whole control of the online version. But the internet platforms owners are not listening to Bangladesh government, and Bangladesh government is trying to create an atmosphere of self-censorship and fear. That's why they created Digital Security Act just before the last election and in 2018. Since then, we, along with other actors, are protesting about this. And after a long time, the government has agreed to do some reform of this law and change the name of this one called, instead of Digital Security Act, they will call it Cyber Security Act. But this act is not for safety and security of citizens. This is actually to ensure the what you call absolute power of the current government to control people and create self-censorship. So that nobody says anything in dissent of this current government. But what we are protesting is that this law has to be for the citizens' benefit in that sense. And we also want that even the government is changing the name of this law and changing some of the punishment in some ways. We are not satisfied with that. Our demand is that since 2018, when the law came, and up to now, at least 2 people are killed in custody under Digital Security Act. Many people are in the jail without any trial, and many people had to leave the country and go abroad. So we want an independent judicial inquiry of misuse of this law since 2018 up to the change now, which we are not happy, and we want the government to publish a kind of white paper and bring those people who were involved with misuse of this law and punish them and bring them to justice. So that's what we are doing in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wayfew, are you here? Could I ask you the next question?
Yes, I can hear you well. Thank you.
Hi, Wayfew. In Myanmar, the junta has been known to regularly employ internet shutdowns over the past 2 years. In fact, Myanmar has been witnessing the longest ongoing internet shutdown, which exceeded 540 days in March 2023. But correct me if I'm getting that wrong. And all 330 townships across the country have been subjected to shutdowns at least once in 2022. What does internet access mean for the people of Myanmar?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anamata. Yes, just to give you a bit of like a background. So, I mean, many of you are aware that it has been like almost 2.5 years now. The military basically trying to control the whole nation through a violent coup. So, but the thing is like, especially on the internet shutdown issue. So since the very first day of the coup, you know, what we have experienced in Myanmar is like basically like the first thing military did is like a shutting down internet. You know, this is like a nationwide internet shutdown, including even the television channels and etc. And then what we have been seeing in these like last 2.5 years is like repeated violations by the military, especially in terms of like trying to restrict, you know, people access to internet, and also trying to control, you know, like people like sharing information and, you know, etc. So that's what we have been seeing. So for the last 2.5 years, you know, we have seen about various types of internet shutdowns. And also like many times of the internet shutdown as well. Like for example, like what we have seen about nationwide internet shutdown, we have seen like event-based internet shutdown. We have seen like regional, you know, regional focused internet shutdowns. And also, in addition to that, what we have seen about it is also IP-based, you know, internet shutdown. Like thousands of websites also has been already, you know, like banned by the military, including messaging platforms, social media platform, like for example, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. You know, people inside the country cannot use them without using the VPNs and, you know, etc. So those are kind of like the types of internet shutdown. And also what we have seen about it is military also did it like several like policy amendments, you know, policy changes, policy reforms to be able to restrict, you know, people access to internet systematically. Like for example, there was like a pushing out like this like a SIM card mandatory registration, and also like raising these like a data price, and also like threatening, you know, to ban the use of the VPNs in Myanmar. A number of people also already got arrested, you know, for having, you know, a VPN installed in their phone, in their electronic devices, and etc. So those are the ways military has been trying to restrict, you know, people access to the internet. But what we have seen recently is, in addition to all those kinds of like measures, what we have been seeing about it is military has been using jamming devices, you know, to be able to shut down not necessarily just the internet access. They are also basically shutting down, you know, like all sort of like communication devices. That's including phone calls, and also like walkie-talkies, and, you know, all others like radios as well. You know, they basically shutting down all the communication devices, you know, people on the ground can use. So that is also, we have seen tons of evidence, you know, the military use the jammers every time, you know, like they do these like airstrikes, or, you know, like the raids on the villages, and etc. So those are also what we have seen on the ground. So that's a bit of like a current background on the internet shutdown. But when we look at about the figures and, you know, etc. So currently right now, over like a 50 plus townships. Next month, they are going to turn 2 years, no internet at all. Only like in some area they got 2Gs, but not all the so all these like 50 plus townships, those are in Chin, mainly in Chin State, Sakai region, and then Magwe, and also some in Kachin State as well, and then also Kurani State. So pretty much like those are the areas current conflicts has been going on between these like resistant forces and also the military. So that is like right now the people on these townships, what they are experiencing about it is they don't really have any information, not necessarily just about these like resistant movements. They are also not really getting any information about like all these like military operations and etc. So when just to give answers to your question, like what internet shutdown, what internet access means for the people in Myanmar. So pretty much like currently right now the situation for the people in Myanmar, internet access is pretty much like dead or life situation, because like many people, many villagers on the ground, they rely on these like messages, share each other about this military operation in their region, in their villages and etc. So by kind of military shutting down all these like communications access communication channels, and by using these like even the jammers and like different orders and etc. People lost these kinds of messages. People didn't get these kinds of messages in advance. So that's why they don't really know about like this military operation in their village, military entering into their village. And also they don't really know how to find their safe route, so that they can flee, this like a conflict area and etc. Many people got killed. Many people got like a kind of like what we have been seeing about it, even like a shot down, during this like an operations period and etc. So that's also we see. But in other part, like for example, pretty much like the whole resistant movement, relying on these digital tools, digital devices, digital platforms, and etc. Like from the mobilizing to the fundraising, and also like even like Zoom has been basically rightly used from these different like the resistant leaders, to at different places to be able to meet and to be able to discuss and etc. So those are also, I would say about it like in any area, especially people, especially the groups, who are in this current conflict area, their access to these different devices, different digital tools, different digitals like communication has been restricted because of the internet shutdown. So that was like maybe a bit of like a broader, like a general picture. Thank you so much, Meta. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You brought up different ways in which access is blocked, and I think that is also kind of linked to the next question that I had for Radhika. Radhika, India is exploring the idea of selective banning. The Telecom Regulatory Authority has issued a consultation paper on whether that is a less intrusive measure than internet shutdowns, which is to say, instead of shutting down the entire internet, they have suggested perhaps shutting down specific platforms that they say, quote unquote, could be used for terrorism purposes and other unlawful reasons. Do you think this is legitimate, or do you think this is essentially an internet shutdown by another name? That's the first leg of my question. And the second, in selecting very specific ways with respect to blocking the internet, how does it affect the digital divide? Because often mobile internet is banned even though broadband is available, but that means that most people in perhaps rural areas that mostly rely on mobile internet stay in the dark more than people in urban areas, and so on and so forth, on grounds of gender and economic status, and so many other vectors. So just your thoughts on selective banning and digital divide, separate or connected as you like.
Right. So I think the first case of selective banning is what we saw in Kashmir. This was in the year 2021. I think this is, they after 552, it was a total period of 552 days to no internet. What they did there was, because there were a number of litigations that were going on in court, they said that what we're going to do is we're going to give you 2G internet and we're going to whitelist a couple of websites, right? So think of it this way: if there is a whitelisting of websites that's done, for example, I'm using a bank website. The bank website is whitelisted, but the bank website / login is not. So it's as ineffective as in the first place. Plus, all of our websites are now designed to load on 4G networks. And loading a website on a 2G network is a very hard thing to do. Okay. This was what we saw in 2021. Now coming to the latest example, which is of the state of Manipur, which has had over, I think now 120 days of internet shutdown. According to in India's rules, there's something, the telecom suspension rules, there's something called that internet shutdown cannot be indefinite, right? So on paper, what they've done, the authorities in Manipur, what they've done is they lifted the shutdown, but they've only said that shutdown is lifted for people who use broadband internet, and there are 100 conditions that are attached to it. The problem is, out of 100 conditions, most people can't understand. Right? They have to log in, log out every day. They can't change their passwords. There can be surprise chats, etc., etc. Right? It's also interesting to understand that the way that India uses internet is, according to the TRAI report, 96 to 97% of India's mobile internet users are mobile internet users. Because mobile data is cheaper, broadband is a little more expensive. Only 2 to 3% of people have access to broadband internet. So if you're shutting down internet and saying it's a partial internet shutdown by only shutting down mobile internet services, you're saying that 97% of people will not have internet. Then there is, of course, throttling, thing, something that we saw during the farmers' protest in India. Again, these are not verified, so there's no order. So if you're putting jammers or if you're throttling internet, you don't have to have an order. Which means that which means that in a protest area, if there is a throttler, my access to internet becomes very, very limited, or no internet at all. But I don't have, but that thing cannot be challenged because there's nothing on paper. Right. Coming to the last bit of your question, the selective banning of apps, right? They said that OTT. So again, I'm sure there'll be studies to prove this, but a number of, so there are things like Facebook Marketplace, Instagram businesses. People do business over WhatsApp. There are so many of your WhatsApp now also has a payments option, right? So when you're just shutting down internet selectively, there is a way around it by using VPNs. B, it also comes with its own sets of harms. So selective banning is definitely not the way forward. Internet shutdowns by itself are bad, whether they're selective or whether they're blanket, they are bad, right? Even if you can't even cut someone's access to Facebook, it's as simple as that. You have to find other ways to control law and order situations. Plus, I think this narrative that shutting down internet or preventing videos going on WhatsApp, is the way to control law and order. That is also not a narrative that's proven. There's also a lot of counter speech that happens on these platforms. There, if there is hate speech, then there's also counter speech. So I think strengthening our efforts to sort of invest more in counter speech, figuring out ways to uh, debunk that narrative, investing more in fact checking, should be the way to go, not selectively banning any kind of internet service.
Thank you so much, Radhika. Usama, are you here? I don't think Usama has been able to join just yet. So perhaps, Mr. Farooq Faisal, if I could come back to you, um, could you tell us a bit more about how internet shutdowns disproportionately affect relatively more vulnerable groups within society, such as human rights defenders, and in the case of Bangladesh, there have been instances of refugees being particularly affected. That's the first limb of the question. And the second, given that Bangladesh will also soon be having elections, are there particular risks around elections that shutdowns could pose? And is there any kind of direction that you would have on how that should be addressed?
Thank you very much. And Yes, I just mentioned that there is a kind of control over the access to internet and radio and telephone for the Rohingya refugees who are there from Myanmar. It's there, it's strong and it's there. But also the government tries to control all kind of different voices or dissents of the government. But the problem is that all the misinformation, hate speech, etc. are spread over the internet by not public mainly, it's by the political leaders who are in power, because they are the one who are easily can criticize the opposition parties and say anything they want, but they use this controlling methodology only for people who are talking against them. But also as we discussed about digital divide, in rural areas, the government can easily control the speed of the telephone connections, internet connections, and etc. So wherever they think that they are not in a good shape as the government, they use that all the time. And the election is the one thing that the government is really worried. And in last two elections actually, it's criticized because they filled up the ballot boxes in the middle of the night. And that's created a big criticism. And if the government has the same intention again this year, they will definitely go for internet shutdown or content moderation and etc. So that is a danger that Bangladesh is about to face. So we are not in a very good shape at this point of time, and January is not very far from here. And the government also tries to have the election during the Christmas, because all the diplomats leave the country for Christmas, so that they do not want the diplomats to see what they are doing with the election. So that's another tricks that they are trying to play. So, but the foreigner countries, diplomats, especially from G20 countries, they are not very happy about that. So they are trying to change the dates now. And Bangladesh election procedure and process and attack on the opposition parties and the shrinking civic space is being criticized by all the European Union government and US government, not Indian government, by the way. Thank you.
On that last point, actually, if I could ask a follow-up, since we're discussing international impact also and the view that other countries have held on this issue, we have seen with various other issues such as the data protection law or efforts to regulate OTT platforms, it appears that South Asian countries are borrowing a lot from each other. For example, within the data protection laws, we've seen Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India, all of them pushing for a certain kind of data localization, even if it is later relaxed. So in that context, do you think with respect to internet shutdowns, South Asian countries or maybe Bangladesh specifically are drawing a kind of legitimacy and perhaps inspiration in a negative way from India, which has imposed so many shutdowns over the last 5 years, leading the count on track to do it for the 6th year in a row?
Yes, I agree with that. Bangladesh follows lots of Indian steps, and actually the Digital Security Act has been copied from India as well, whatever was possible. And the OTT Control Act has come to Bangladesh. It's not yet law, but they will do that. Then data protection law, that's like we follow the Indians way a lot in that sense. But the problem is that the data protection is actually not protecting data, because Bangladesh does not have the capacity of keep the data of the citizens secure, because we are sending all the data outside Bangladesh for storage. And the problem is that there was hacking happening in Bangladesh all the time, and a new information about hacking has come out, and there was a big hacking of people's identity and etc. And also Bangladesh Bank was robbed online already, and it has not been what you call properly investigated, because people say that some people who are close to power are involved with this robbery from the central bank. So yes, we follow some of the Indian ways, but also we do not try to protect the data and safety and security of citizen online, which is very important for a country like Bangladesh, which is weak and does not have the infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you. Vivyo, I mentioned in the introduction that internet shutdowns are often used to shield abuse in conflict regions. And I think Myanmar is among the foremost examples of this within Asia. You also spoke about how 50 regions within Myanmar have been under an internet shutdown for 2.5 years straight now. Could you tell us a little more about the ground realities that the international community is not seeing, the impact of shutdowns in these regions that is not visible? And also, if, and I'm not sure there is an answer to this, but if there is, other regions that have managed to regain access after being under shutdown, are there any specific patterns there? Are there ways in which the international community has perhaps helped move the needle? Of course, the variables are very different in a democracy versus in a region like Myanmar. But are there any trends or patterns there in terms of regions that now have access and did not earlier? And again, the realities that are not visible to us because of this information blockade.
Thank you, Namita. I think yes, the internet shutdowns in Myanmar, all these 50 plus townships are facing are quite prolonged. You know, this is over 2 years time, no internet at all. So you can imagine the impacts, on the ground quite severe in a different ways. So what we have been seeing about it, especially and also these are the areas military has been committing various atrocities, on the ground, including airstrikes, bombings, on the villages and etc. So the obvious challenges we has been experiencing, including us and also others actors like media and etc. to be able to understand, what is going on the ground and etc. For example, last year, even to be able to verify, internet shutdown and etc. It is also quite challenging for us, to be able to verify, from outside, So that is one reason. That the other thing is some area, for example, because we are also talking about the borrowing countries and etc. For example, Naga, a self-administrative zone area, it is the border with India, Nagaland, the northeast western part of the Myanmar. So that area, they don't have internet since March 2021. So currently, right now, they only rely on the internet. Some are only in a very remote area from these India SIM cards and etc. they use, right? So this area, what we have been hearing about it, because since the very beginning of the coup, they faced the internet shutdown and etc. So they don't really know what is going on in the rest of the country. So they totally missed the whole kind of a bigger picture of these revolution, a resistance, different resistance movement, etc. So the information people in the Naga area, what the information they receive is only through the channels, filtered by the military. So pretty much a misinformation, a killings by these resistance force and etc. All these misinformation, disinformation. So that is one thing we've been kind of hearing. But the thing is we still need to understand better, what have these kinds of how these misinformation, disinformation and propaganda of the military have impacted, people in the Naga views on the general, the whole resistance and etc. So that is also one thing. The other one is I would say about like, for example, recent like nuggets, recent cyclone, situation. So this is the area hugely the cyclone hit it like the areas which has been international facing internet shutdown, like that's including Rakhine, Chin State, and then the Sakai region. So what we have been seeing about it, like the people on the ground, time to time, tell us when they have the internet or when they got to the point, they get the internet, etc. So they are explaining about their situation on the ground, access to like a humanitarian support, as kind of like the issues around on these like medical support and like urgent emergency need and etc. So those information, it is really difficult, to find in the local medias or international medias and etc. And then also like we see about it, this is also basically restrict, like international body like UN and others like to be able to enter into these regions and then to be able to reach the like these assistance, reach to the people on the ground and etc. So that is also currently like a major challenge. Every time we got a chance to talk with them, these stories we've been hearing a lot as well. The other one I also would like to mention about it is particularly on the education sector. So education sector is like a majority of the students, public school students, and also majority of the public school teachers are boycotting against the public school under the control of the military. So compared to the data before the coup and then like the data from the late 2022, over 60% of the students in the basic educations are not joining to going back to the public schools. This is
what are the challenges progress and social perspective for digital economic in Asia. The digital economic in Asia has been significantly grown and transformation.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Bikram Shrestha. Could I request that you put in your question in chat, or I'll definitely come to you in the question and answer round. I just want to make sure Wayfio has a chance to complete her point, and we'll definitely take that. Thank you so much.
Yes, sorry. So basically, like, sorry, just to continue, particularly like education, I would say about like 60% of the students in the basic level education, and also 70% of the students, the university level students, are not going back to the public school. This is the 4th consecutive year study from the COVID situation. So, I mean, because of if it is like it, I'm not really saying any comments on their decision, like boycotting like a public school and etc. But like if we have the internet access, like at least like I mean, these students can join, online education, online different like education initiatives and etc. But right now, basically, this area, especially Chin, Sakai, and the Karen State, so there is a prolonged internet shutdown. Students on the ground are also not even able to find an alternative education as well. So that has been, I would say, about majority of the students, not like a kind of 10 to 20%. It's just like 60 to 70% from the kindergarten level to the university level. So that is like internet shutdown really restricting, like these the kids, access to the education. That is also so we have been seeing on the ground as well. And then back to this, like in the matter your last question, particularly like for example, like Rakhine State, right? Like Rakhine and then the southern part of the Chin State, there was the before the coup situation, they also experienced prolonged internet shutdown under the NND government. There was also the time during these like the conflicts like between Rohingya and then like the military and etc. So at that time, like currently right now, what we have been saying about like a different like NND members, they have been saying about they could not really understand what is going on about the whole kind of like a bigger picture of the conflicts because of the restricted the access to the information. So there was like they said that now only after they have access to be able to talk to the people on the ground and etc. they start realizing how serious it is, and also like they also start seeing about this kind of like a manipulation propaganda campaign of the military and etc. This can be an excuse from the military and indeed the government, but somehow that's also sort of like I would say about it as a bit of like a reflection, a bit of like a learning lesson, how the internet shutdown basically restrict, people understanding on the this ground situation, and also so how people kind of like take on into these like a different like a propagandas, of the military and etc. So I would say about it like this is kind of like evidence, this is the lessons, we can take on, how internet access and internet shutdown basically can make a kind of like a different, and people understanding about such serious like conflict situations in Myanmar and etc. So yeah, those are maybe I will stop here right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vifyo. Maybe before I go to the third question, we could take a couple of questions. There is one in the chat for Radhika from Pradeep Thomas. And I know there was one more from Bikram Shrestha. I'm not sure if they're still here. But if you are, please feel free to ask the question after Pradeep Thomas's question. Radhika, don't you think that the government of India's many internet shutdowns are calculated attempts to deprive minority communities of their right to information? Is the question from Pradeep Thomas.
Right. Thanks, Pradeep, for the question. I think that internet shutdowns not only restrict people's, right to information, they also prevent political participation, especially for minority communities and women, right? Sorry. As a woman, I think you'll find it hard to say that we would go out for a protest if there's a shutdown, because a shutdown generally signifies that there's something that's going wrong, right? And in countries like ours where there are already existing security issues, you would not step out. But I do think that internet shutdowns does deprive communities, minority and otherwise, from their right to information, as we saw in the case of Manipur, and how those videos surfaced as soon as there was a little internet that was back.
Thank you, Radhika. Bikram Shrestha, are you here? All right, perhaps not, in which case I'll keep us moving. Just if you could turn the discussion to employ a slightly more forward-looking lens in terms of changes that are possible, advocacy opportunities that exist, and how a positive change can be brought about in terms of the frequency and just the internet shutdown as a measure. Radhika, again, maybe to you and then to Mr. Farooq Faisal and Vefyo. The Manipur shutdown, which in many ways is still ongoing, it sharply put into light how such bans hamper processes and turn regions into black boxes. How can these trends of impunity around shutdowns be changed by various stakeholders, be it the public, courts, media, international spaces? How can this change be brought about?
Thanks, Amrita. I really believe that litigation is the way to go. As we saw in India, at least, that a lot of litigation really helped. At least put up some guidelines against shutdowns, right? Then I also really believe that, there is this resistance in people to believe that shutdowns are bad. Because people think that it's okay, if they're shutting down internet for 2 days and it means that everything will be safe and sound, it's okay. Right? So there's no exploration of alternatives, there's no exploration of the impact of shutdowns. There's barely any work done to actually understand what shutdowns do, right? I think recording lost voices, litigating against shutdowns, I mean, sort of building a public archive of the impact of what shutdowns do, to change the narrative around has to be the way forward. And I really think that multilateral forums like the G20, with their themes, I mean, India in past at least has signed some of these documents. where they said that there will not be a politically motivated shutdowns. There has to be some international pressure through these forums so that at least like the number of shutdowns reduce.
Thank you, Radhika. Mr. Farooq Faisal, if I could come back to you, given that digital inclusion has been an important focus for the G20, what role do you think digital inclusion can play in introducing transparency and accountability checks within the state apparatus and this inclination to impose shutdowns, or not even blanket shutdowns, just measures to block social media platforms or specific other messaging apps? And Bangladesh has now been cited over the last many years as being an important diplomatic partner for a lot of countries. So, how can the people of Bangladesh advocate for this change both within the country and beyond?
Thank you very much. I think anything fora like G20, and I'm sorry the SARC is not working anymore. There should be this South Asian coalition as well. Parallel to the government discussion, I think citizen voices should be heard in these forums, okay? And citizens should have the right to speak. And now the World Bank, ADB, and other organizations are giving the opportunity of general public to speak at this kind of meetings. And so my point is that what Bangladesh can do and other countries can do as well is creating awareness among the people that shutdown is not acceptable. Why it's not acceptable? Number one is it has relationship with many things. One is the public health. For example, during COVID, if you shut down the COVID and though no news comes out, then you are in trouble. Again, my friend from Myanmar mentioned that natural calamity is something that people need to know. And if you shut down the information, then it's the problem. It's there. So there are two things. One is that creating the awareness among the citizens and connecting with different activists from different countries and work together, and also undertake strategic advocacy for their government and others' government at the same time. I think this is one way forward from my point of view. Thanks.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Wayfio, a related question for you again in terms of what the way forward is, how we can collaborate, how stakeholders can work together, and leveraging their own unique positions within the ecosystem. If we were to employ an international lens to this, how can international stakeholders and these summits help the people in Myanmar to regain internet access?
Yes, then definitely when we talk about the internet access in Myanmar, so we are also looking about like alternative communications, alternative like internet access and etc. So we definitely need a lot of support from these like members countries of G20, like G20 and etc. Like when we look at about G20, like India, we also have the border countries with India, China, etc. Right, like so. Definitely, when we are finding different ways to be able to make sure about like communities, they have the internet access. So we really needed like a lot of like a collaboration from these countries. Like we have a long border with India, long border with the China, and also like for example, and others like India, Thailand, Bangladesh, and etc. So that is also the support. We are also looking into it as well. And then the other thing is like not necessarily just like a kind of like a physical kind of border and etc. But the thing is like the companies like in India, companies in China and etc. They are also like among the countries which has like largest like satellite companies and etc. So that is also we are looking into it like in terms of technologies, in terms of like a government pressure, in terms of like support from these like international community and etc. to make sure about people in Myanmar, they have the alternative like communications channels, communications devices, and etc. Otherwise, like under this military government, we don't really see it about this situation of the internet access will get kind of like improve, you know. We don't really, this is not what we have seen as well. So that's why we are we trying to reach out to these different governments. So we really wanted like such summit like G20, you know, we to be able to kind of like make it like these country leaders understand about the situation, and then they are kind of like a role, you know, they can play. I mean, in the chat, you know, I also see about it like internet shutdown is pretty much like a kind of, you know, I mean, is this like a link to the right to life? That's the case in Myanmar, actually, you know. So that's why like it's not about like one country's, you know, politics. It's not about, you know, like territory issues and, you know, etc. It is pretty much about the right to life of the people in Myanmar. So that's why we really wanted like international community understand about this kinds of situation, and also basically kind of like coordinated in terms of like putting in efforts, you know, to make sure about we have these like different sources for the alternative communication. And also at the same time, I mean, to be not as what military has been doing is not necessarily just about like stopping internet access for the people of Myanmar, but they are also doing about it all sort of like a surveillance, you know, on these digital tools, using the digital tools, digital devices, and etc. as well. So we also really wanted like affected like measures from these countries in making sure about like different like digital tools, digital devices like a secure surveillance tools and etc. not to reach to the hands of the military. Like for example, you know, in many Indian companies has been involving in these recent developments by the military in setting up like for example EID system, like collecting biometric, and also even like setting up different data system, you know, for the national building up like a national database system and etc. Many Indian companies has been providing like these sort of like different digital apps and, you know, softwares and etc. So that's why we really wanted like to be discussed, and also to make sure about it like they find a kind of like a common like collective measures, you know, against exchange of like these tools, you know, which can be eventually reached to the hands of the military. So that is also how what we kind of like hoping, and then we will be also doing about it a collective effort, you know, like around this like international advocacy, focusing on the G20 summit as well. So, thank you.
These are very clear asks. Thank you.
We are getting out of time, and if there is anyone who is present in the room have any question, maybe we should ask them at this point. I cannot see it.
Yes, please. I'm told we have 9 minutes. So yes, folks in the room, please take the floor and ask a question if you have one.
Yeah, if there is any question from the audience here.
First of all, I want to thank to Mary Pyomie. I'm also from Myanmar. I like to share about my country situation a bit more, but her explanation is very complete, and I really appreciate for that. And thank you very much, Mary Pyomie. I am a network engineer in Myanmar, but now I am in Australia. I am also the trainer in Myanmar. Every communication devices, as Mary Pyomie said, every communication channels are being shut down, not only the internet, the mobile, the satellite, the radio devices, walking, talking, every communication devices are not allowed by the military government. And there are some regions like Sakai, something, many regions, around 50 regions, their internet was shutting down, and then in those regions, there are many human rights violations are happening, and then the media cannot come in, the international cannot see that, and then the thing they are happening are very terrible. And in the education sector, since I am a trainer, what I am facing is I am trying to open the online training, and then there are some requests that, teacher, I want to have the online training from you, can you open or not? And then they ask the situation that in their region they want to have the internet, but what kind of situation I can help? And then actually, when I consider about that, I have no way or I have no solution for provide the solution to them. And then for the training, I try to open the training, but their internet, they try to come to the area with the mobile internet with 2G, 3G, but they are not able to access, and then I am very difficult to do the training. Even in the city area, the electricity was unstable, and then they are not able to access their education, or they are not able to access the class in my class as well. And another thing is in Myanmar, there is the telecom license is the every ISP they cannot communicate with the IB transit through the overseas provider. Only the provider who has the international gateway can connect to the cross-border IB transit. So actually, it is illegal. The ISP also, I am also supporting some of the ISP from Myanmar that they want to connect to the overseas provider, and then they block everything like Facebook and ban the Facebook, and then so they want to have the solution, but I could not provide that because it is illegal with their license. It is illegal to provide the connection with the overseas provider. So it is not possible. So every aspect is very difficult to get the internet and shutting down the internet. And then there are various ways of IP-based blocking. And then they are also recently also they are forcing the people to register their mobile SIM card with their name. And then
Is this a question?
I'm really sorry.
Yes.
It's a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies. This is very helpful, but I just want to make sure others also get a chance to ask, and we need to wrap up in a few minutes.
Okay, so thank you very much. And that's all. I think for the last, first of all, we need the international support, like what he said, that the neighbor country, we need the communication channel, and then try to support the possible ways for especially for the region who doesn't have the internet. We want to have the satellite devices, like the Starlink coverage, something like that. Those kind of solutions we are needing. And then also, I want to request to the international that not to reach the surveillance devices. It is very harmful, and then they are trying to use those technologies for the AI technology, and then they are trying to catch.
Yes. We only have two.
Thank you very much,
yeah,
and then
thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any more questions in the room? I know there's one question in chat which Refio touched upon, but if Radhika or Mr. Farooq Faisal, if you want to weigh in on the right to life and the internet. But first, any other questions in the room?
I don't see. Okay, one question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just a very quick one. I wanted to know, for all our participants who have been attending APrIGF so far, and I've met, I'm a mentor myself in APrIGF, and I wanted to know, what are your lived experiences after you go back? For anyone who is speaking, I'm actually very concerned about your safety, even after you speak in a forum like this. How about the safety of your family out there if you become their voices here? Is there anyone who actually takes care of this? Is there any form of protection available? Thank you.
Anyone online wants to answer, or?
I think I can go and I can couple it up with Arman's question. I think at least for us in India, we've not reached that stage yet. A lot of us who are working in small civil societies, we're all, uh, of course, concerned, especially for organizations which litigate or which take very public stands. But I mean, there's also like a lot of community support that we get from each other, and that's what helps the fight going. On Arman's question on last month's former the balance between right to life and right to information. I think there's nothing that's proven which says that if you don't shut down the internet during a public safety situation, the situation will become worse, right? So we're right now we're working on assumptions that just because I shut down the internet, a potential riot may get curbed, right? It's definitely there has been no study. Actually, there have been studies on the contrary. There's a scholar called Jan Isaac who writes on misinformation and buns, who actually makes this hypothesis that short-term shutdowns can control public order situations.
We have
So, Radhika, I'm sorry to interrupt. We will have to wrap up.
Yeah, wrap
Uh,
up. Article
I
9
can
provides for the protection actually in several countries in the world and also in Bangladesh and South Asia. So, Namrata, if there is any last point, we have only 4 seconds left. And I would like to thank the panelists and thank you and the people who are present in this room. So, Namrata, it's you.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to close with this. Thank you all the speakers. As somebody in the audience rightly mentioned, this is difficult work to do, and thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I think there are opportunities here to effectuate change together along with all stakeholders, and the G20 is one forum. There are several others. So keep fighting the good fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Just a quick note, housekeeping. The next session here will be what are the challenges, progress, and social prosperity for digital economy in Asia? And that will begin at 11:30 a.m. So see you again here in 14 minutes. But please bring your discussion and thoughts to the synthesis document at comment.aprigf.asia as well. See you in 13 minutes.
This is for the entire session. But you can always say this is just for us, the general result. This is for you to be able to see the Zoom, yes.
Recording stopped.
Amrita will be our speaker. Amrita. No, not now. Yeah, I know. You were our speaker. Amrita, Vikram, Nirosa.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
And
Actually,
Sarah.
I'm always on the wrong kid, no worries. But it's good to go home. Amrita, Vikram.
Amrita, Vikram, but Sarah is not here now.
Shah is not there. Shah is not here.
Nirosa is here.
Yeah. Helena, would she join you? Helena, in person?
We can have Punela is will be co-moderating.
Oh, so we come
She will be
later.
a co-moderator, but after she just.
Yeah, okay. Let me just get to the
But
toilet.
I'm starting.
I know.
She will be co-moderator.
Okay.
Physically, I thought I won't like there's no caption.
Everyone is taking care of it. I will restart.
There's no caption. It's going to caption to a power trying to capture that with the probably get it. There's no conversation. So
yeah.
Cool. These go on reading the
In this room. Okay, I'm after the next. After the Good morning. How are you? I'm good. How are you? Good. Yes, I have to sit up here. Okay, great. Yeah. Are you speaking today? No, but I'm working with APrIGF on facilitating research. Awesome. Yeah. I'll be back. Yeah. Okay. I might just sit next to you in case I need whiskers. Always difficult being the last session of the APrIGF. So we'll cross fingers for you. Yes. Okay. All right. So. Is there a tech person?
No, I am going to be the tech person.
You're a tech person. My goodness, we're very privileged.
Yeah, unfortunately there was the setup. What do you need?
I think we're fine.
Yeah.
But
do the setup and I will show it and then
yeah.
And you can see the Zoom. Yes.
Yeah.
You can also
So
log into Zoom.
yeah. No, that should be fine.
And I will start. I'm telling to usher people.
Yeah. Yeah, telling people to come in there. It's taking a little bit of time. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's two mics here. Can you pass me the other one and I'll just have that for the end bit. Okay, and I'll just. So this is live stream 3. Which live stream 3. You have a few online people, apart from the panelists? Okay, great. That's always a challenge. It's always a challenge.
We are finishing the
Yeah. the online people, so that's good. It's really hard to. Oh, it's a different one. The one I used.
This one you not to speak.
Yeah. So it's switch on because the other one had this kind of.
No, because the other one has the sound engineer and they turn it on automatically.
Oh, okay. So we should have it all on this.
Yeah. And I will push the switch on.
Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Recording in progress.
Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have a discussions about what are the challenges, progress and social prosperity for digital economy in Asia. Although it's a very broad topic, we will be concentrating on in South Asian countries only. Actually, this topic has been chosen based on the challenges of the digital penetration in Asia, specifically in South Asian countries. Few aspects of our lives remain untouched by the transformation of the digital economy. So our session will be focusing on the key challenges which are affecting the success of the digital economy. Specifically, we would like to focus on whether we are cultivating a fully digital literate society by which citizens can able to use transformation, emerging technology to take advantage of the growing digital economy. Apart from that, we will be concentrating on digital divides in terms of access, bandwidth, languages or scripts will influence the digital economy. For instance, if you think about India, the significant thrust by the government towards digital economy may be hindered or may be bogged down by the large proportion of the populations and on the wrong side of the digital divides. And one more thing we will be concentrating on whether we are capable to building trust for technology enabled innovation to thrive. And another thing is that cyber vulnerability means and the threat of attacks and misuse of. Okay. And our aim of these sessions to bring together representatives from diverse stakeholder groups of explore the future dimension of the digital economy, specifically in South Asia. And we hope the sessions will show the way how we can face the key challenges and harvest the benefits of the digital economy towards access and inclusion, trust, sustainability. As outcome of these sessions, we are expecting through an interactive discussions, participants will consider how multi-stakeholder efforts can identify and address skill deficiencies to better prepare community or people for the changes produced by the digital economy. So today we have 4 valuable speakers. Amrita Chaudhary from India. She belongs to civil society. And Shah Jaidur Rahman, he will be from Bangladesh and belongs to technical community. And Nirosa Vedasinghe from Sri Lanka, she belongs to academia. And Vikram Srestha from Nepal, he belongs to private sector. So let I quickly introduce our valuable speakers. Amrita Chaudhary is an active participant in national and global digital policy and internet governance discussions. She serves as the director of CCAOI, United Nations IGF MAC member, chair of APrIGF, president of Indian Society, Internet Society, India Delhi chapter, and many more. She is also a ICANN fellow. And our next speaker will be Shah Jaidur Rahman. Presently, he is working in Specialized Works Limited as a chief digital officer. And he is having very vast experience in the internet governance and policy discussions. He is used to speak frequently in several forums like national, regional, and United Nations IGF on IG issues. And our next speaker will be Dr. Nirosa Vedasinghe, and she is working as senior lecturer, Faculty of Computing in GSJK Defence University. She is an active member of Computer Society of Sri Lanka and chairperson membership of IJOC Sri Lanka. And she is also a MAC member of APrIGF and various committees member in APrIGF. And Vikram will be, and then the speaker Vikram Srestha, he is the president of Nepal Internet Foundation and immediate past president of IJOC Nepal. He is also having more than 2 decades of capacity building, leading ICT sector, banking, as well as e-banking. And presently he is the digital banking head in Sanima Bank. And okay, let us start without any further delay. I am going to ask Amrita Chaudhary. So how are you witnessing the digital economy transforming lives? And you have 5 minutes now.
Thank you. I'll try to reduce the time, and thank you for having me. As in, if I look at the India story, there is a lot of transformation happening, especially after COVID-19. Digital has become mainstream. I would say today, if we look at UPI payment system, there are around 10 billion transactions happening each month, and 45% of the global real-time payments are happening in India. During the pandemic, we had the COVID portal, which actually delivered 2 billion vaccine doses with the digitally verifiable certificates. If I look at a vegetable vendor today, he's taking payment through mobile banking or even scanning. If I have to send even money to my car cleaner, I can do it online. They may not understand English, they may not know how to write an email, but they know how to use technology for their basic day-to-day life. So digital is transforming. You will see, and since South Asia is more mobile friendly, people are using mobile in ways which people do not. They are creating content, they are earning money. In fact, even women sitting at home are making food, selling it, communicating through messaging platforms, getting payments through mobile payments. So there is a huge digital transformation which has happened. So there is this good part which is happening. The government is also putting in a lot of effort to connect people. And there is a thrust from private sector to innovate. Even curriculum, etc., is making it more, I would say, digital friendly. And especially in a country like India, where costs are high, our data, our internet costs are quite low compared globally. It may be choppy in some places, but at least the costs are lower. You are getting innovative, refurbished phones, tablets, etc., which many people can use. So there is a lot of trust which is happening, but there are concerns too. Do you want me to address the concerns now, or do you want me to come back to it later?
Thank you, Amrita, for enlightening us the UPI payments. As far as I remember, UPI payments started in India in 2016. By that time, people not aware about UPI payment. And as per the statistics, on the day of 2023, there are 400 banking sectors are engaging in the digital payments interfaces, and 23, as far as I remember, 23 plus of apps are there. Okay, thank you for enlightening us on the view of Indian perspective. Now I'm going to Sahajaidur Rahman let us start with the questions. What are the challenges have you identified in Bangladesh that the digitally to build the digitally literate society? Sa, over to you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Priyatosh, and thank you, everyone. This is Shah from Bangladesh. Actually, before going to the challenges, I have to share a little bit history of that digital transformation of Bangladesh. Because many of we have seen that during the pandemic, the digital growth of economy and the transactions we observe. But one of the things in our country is happening that our government has taken the Bangladesh as a digital Bangladesh. So it has started its digital transformation before the pandemic, actually. You know that Bangladesh is a developing country. So it has taken initiatives to make all the peoples to connected infrastructure development. So because of these digital transformations, people's like different regions, not only in that city, we have 8 cities, and then to that of different Upojela, and we have also covered that connections that have transformed the users. I mean that women and young entrepreneurs also get involved with this digital transformations process. As I had mentioned that due to that digital Bangladesh, many of that's also service like government has taken given service of like one shops, which is that point of sales that different rural peoples can bring their product to that selling point and can sell their product through that platform. So and also the private sectors like us here in through the basis, different private and other non-profit organizations also collaborate this transforming process of the digital Bangladesh. So there is also that opportunity has started, as well as some sorts of challenges have also we identified, because due to that literacy, maybe in that rural portions or overall that countries, many of may not have the appropriate applications knowledge. So there have a gap between that rural sites and that city sites. So majorities of peoples, that in our women's used to not very frequently. So the literacy, they need to know how to evolve with these applications and what are the benefits and how they can benefit from these technologies, and also to get involved with the digital process. Another one is about to identify the policy, whether we are developed as a developing countries. It is very crucial at the first point to bring all that policy issues to that it can solve to the issues like payments and others, international transactions. Few years back, we had also faced problem with that to monetary transactions with that PayPal. So that when a transactions is occurs, it's either through a credit card or other debit cards, but some of the cards that is not applicable in our country. So there could be a hindrance for these options. And also also that applications or the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or cybersecurity issues, we have also challenges due to the lacking of that cyber knowledge. Many of that problems could be occurs, which need to be identified from the government as well as from the private sectors. And also to develop the digital overall the digitalization system, like for SME and others institutions, those who are involved with them, this digital process, because digital is not is only part of some of the country, but to a overall ecosystem. So the ecosystem that we need to develop need to be inclusive, so we can minimize the digital divided as well as give the full potential to the all sectors in Bangladesh. Most of that like e-commerce and e-commerce as well. We can also maybe in near future, as we are in the process of the upgrading of the 5G network. So there could be another challenge that all that mobile users from the 4G to 5G, that would be a greater challenges, because 75% of the peoples in Bangladesh using mobiles either or in broadband, but still that mobile penetration is very high in Bangladesh. Like this year's in fiscal up to March, we had 130 million mobile users. So whatever they use, either a device, that devices also need to be under consideration, because all those devices we are using either imported or like recently we have started some of that mobile phones in reassembling in our country. But the devices cost is needs to be also in consideration. These are the challenges. And another challenges could be for digital economy is about taxes, because it's another point. Those who are very small entrepreneur like women or if their taxings on the earnings could be minimized, then it could be also that possible way we can grow our digital Bangladesh, as well as we can get involved in a digital economy in a better way. So there are more things in to reduce the digital divided in Bangladesh. We have to take many sorts of challenges in future so that we can minimize that gap. I think this is from my side to address some of the challenges. Maybe I can come later for further discussion again. I have time. Thank you, Priyatosh, and I want to get back to you and want to know that if you have any more questions on these issues.
Thank you, sir, for put forwarding the overview of the scenario of the Bangladesh, whatever is going on. Now I'll be asking to Niro sir to say about what are the obstacles for the digital economy in Sri Lanka or any other developing countries in South Asia.
Am I audible to you all?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, those who participate physically and online. And also, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a speaker in this APrIGF 2023 forum. When we talk about the digital economy globally, actually we know that it is a significant growth and transformation in the coming years. With the technology advancements and increase in the connectivity, digital economy, it's become a vital driver of global economic activity. When we looking ahead, several key trends and outlook shape the future of the digital economy in the Asia, as well as it is similar to the Sri Lanka as well. Firstly, the adoptions of emerging technologies such as like artificial intelligence and the quantum computing, blockchain, and the Internet of Things will continue to accelerate. These will revolutionize various sectors in Sri Lanka, including finance. I think it's not only in Sri Lanka, in Asia, also common for all the other countries as well. So it's including with the finance, healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, and education focuses towards more efficiency and the innovations. And also the e-commerce and the digital platform will create new business opportunities to traditional and reshape the most traditional industries. It was changed with the pandemics. There were a lot of changes happen in the Asia, and its online retail will continue to grow. I think it was very recently. It was happened to Sri Lanka, I think in 2019, after the 2019 pandemic situation. And it was actually the online retail will continue to grow, and also change in the consumer preferences. And also because of that, it was increased the digital literacy. Most of the normal generally in the technology adoption, we know that most of the young people get adapted, but with the pandemic, it was already, I think in the Asia, not only the Asia and the globally, it has already changed because of these changes. Not only the young people, the old people, and many different type of people has already changed their consumer patterns and increased the digital literacy. Sri Lanka also digital literacy has already, now it is up to now it's up to the 60%, but actually it was, I think, was practically changed with this pandemic. And gig economy. So it's remote work with gain different prominence and enabling individuals to work flexibility and access global job market as well. And also data play a central role in the digital economy. The collections and the analysis and the data monetizations will derive the personalized services and the target markets and enhance decision making. However, in Sri Lanka, the digital privacy and the cybersecurity concerns need to be required, and robust regulations and for the safeguards. And also concern about the digital inclusion will also be a crucial focuses, and efforts will be made to bridge the digital divide and ensuring the equitable access to the technology, connectivity, and the digital skills. Actually, this will contribute to the economic empowerment and social development on a global scale. Then the collaborations and the partnership between the government, business, and the international organization will be the vital in shaping the digital economy. And collaborations will drive the policy frameworks, foster innovation ecosystems, and address the global challenges like digital taxation, intellectual property rights, and across the border data flows. I think so. Those are the things. Things later we will discuss some more things as well. Over to you,
Thank you, Nirosa. Now I'll be asking to Bikram, as you are in digital banking sector or you are a banking professionals. So if you could please tell us what will be the skill mix required in technical, managerial, or in communications. Over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Piers, and thank you for everyone being here. First of all, I would like to thanks for giving this opportunity. And as we know that nowadays we have been using all the our life is in a digital platform. So the digital economic in South Asia has been a significant growth and transformation after COVID-19 pandemic, bringing both opportunity and challenges. So the challenges for the digital economic in our part of the world are diverse and complex. One of the main challenges I have been facing in our part of the world is the digital divide, which refers to the gap between those who have internet access and digital technology and those who don't have access or internet and technology. This divide can be due to many factors such as poor ICT infrastructure and adequate skills development, social economic barriers, lack of affordability, and so on. So as per World Bank report 29 March 2022, and there is a 61% of South Asian lives within range of teleco network, but still do not use the internet. The large usage gap in the world. So international bandwidth is especially expenses in landlocked country like Nepal. And as you said that the skill is very much important, and for the good skill, we have to have comprehensive approach, involvement, educations, training, support, and there should be a policy initiatives is needed. Strategy including providing training and upskilling this program, promoting digital literacy, pairing them with mentors, offering flexible working arrangements and financial support, and collaboration with employer to create inclusive hiring practice. So this policy should be in. And most of the important thing is community has to be engaged within this skill development. So this measures helps them acquire a new technology, adapt to change a job market, and by implementing this strategy, I think stakeholder can ensure that lower skilled and older or anyone they're not there should not be behind in the digital economic. Additionally, establishing a social safety nets can improve concerns about job security and I think income instability. So it is important to create an inclusive environment that allows everyone, regardless to their skill level or age, adapt and succeed and contribute to the digital workforce. I think I can elaborate or more, or if there is any additional questions. Over to Piyush.
Thank you, Vikram, for giving such details about the skill miss. And now I'm coming back to Amrita. In terms of digital payment or digital revolution in India, so what are the challenges have you observed, and how they can be handled?
Thanks, Priyatosh. I think that's the question, while we are having so much of thrust going in for the transformation, but the harsh reality is, though we are the second largest internet user base globally, we still have 40% of the population to connect. So if all services go digital, are we not creating a further divide for people who are not connected, which all the other speakers also mentioned. And the key challenge before us is what can be done to ensure no one is left behind. Are we making things simpler and easier for people? For example, many older people from the generation who are literate but not so technology savvy has been put into the to use the digital services, the government services, etc., and they are not equipped for it. Are we helping them to build the capacity? Secondly, since everyone is going digital, paying money through the digital mobile money, etc., there has been a rise of scam. Mobile-based scams, etc., people calling up, etc. So there is a trust deficit, there is a security deficit, which you were alluding to. So are we doing enough to build the capacity of senior citizens or people who are not that literate, that look, if a message comes and it looks like it is coming from the bank, doesn't mean it is the bank who is sending it. Or if someone is asking you for know your customer details, it is not the telecom company who's sending. Similarly, we are seeing that there is a rise of misinformation, disinformation. For example, there were a lot of lynching issues. There were incidents of lynching wherein, a message was passed that there is a kidnapper there to kidnap children. So people passed it without judgment because they were thinking it was a social good, but actually led to the death of a person who was not doing that. So I think there is a lot of capacity building required, that while we are giving these tools, people should know to use it, how to use it. Now, there are many places where you have connectivity, but they don't have good connectivity to do everything. For example, if children have to study from mobiles, is the bandwidth enough? Are we making the study material more lighter or making more innovations? So those are certain things which needs to be done. Definitely, it was mentioned by Shah also, accessibility, availability, what kind of content is there, multilingual content is important. Similarly, if we are wanting people with disabilities or special abilities to use these platforms, apps, services, are we making it friendly for them? Again, if we are looking at multilingual, for example, even in government services, the first 2-3 interfaces are in local languages, but are even the final payment gateway processes in the local language? Is it end-to-end in local language, or do we have audio prompts that, look, you need to do this? So those are certain things which needs to be worked on. I know these are difficult things. Everyone wants to work on it and kind of get these things correct. But, we need to see how fast we can do it so that we don't have more people left behind than we wanted to. Thanks.
Thanks, Amrita. As per Amrita was saying that older people are not willing to use or lower skilled due to the lower skill maybe may not be adequate for the digital economy in the society. So I am coming to Vikram as Amrita was saying. So if you could please ensure that how the lower skilled and older workers can change their mindset and they may be prepared to adapt that thing. Over to you, Vikram.
Yeah, thank you for questions. As I already said that, to prepare low skill and older workers for the digital economic, a comprehensive approach should be there, including education, training, support, and policy initiatives is needed. And strategy should be to provide training and upskilling programs should be there, and promoting digital literacy. There should be a pairing them to mentors, and there should be a a good opportunity to learn more new things. I think change is constant, and the technology is evolving day by day, and there is lots of ongoing new innovation in IT field. So in ICT, we have been saying that there should be collaborating with each and every peer, and the strategy should be more flexible, and the older workers in acquiring new skill and promoting a positive insight of their roles within the work group. These measures help them acquiring a new digital skill, adapt to the changing job market, and by implementing this strategy, the stakeholder can ensure that lower skill and older workers are not left behind in this digital economic. Additionally, I can say that establishing a social safety nets can improve concern job about the job everyone, and regardless of their skill level or age, to adapt, succeed, and contribute to the digital workforce. So for the olders, we can say that as our parents also are using internet nowadays, but they are more familiar with the social medias, but it's very difficult to use this like mobile banking or this digital platform finance, access to finance, and then others day-to-day official kind of work like email. So it's still there is a challenge to more challenge to adopt this technology for lower skill or older workers. So I think we have to have a regular kind of awareness and capacity building program, and then we can overcome these challenges. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Vikram. And now I'm coming back to Sa. So as you are talking about the digital penetrations and in Bangladesh, so how do you think, is there any changes to be made in policy, or is there, if you clarify it, whether is there any amendment to be done on the existing policy? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Pratosh. Yes, exactly what I said before. It's a very challenging because the digital transformation in Bangladesh is happening very abruptly. But the policy that has made in 2018, still we are running on this. But yes, from the government side, they have taken initiative to make some policy changes because of this digital transformation. Some of the things need to adopt it with that current scenario. Almost South Asia's most of the countries like us in Bangladesh, we are also facing that sorts of policy we need to develop. Actually, for example, that I shared before, that the connectivity or the minimum bandwidth for that broadband users, we have recently adopted that it should be at least 5 Mbps, but it was previously not mandatory. But now all the operators, even in mobile and also ISP, they are mandated to give at least the 5 Mbps bandwidth to the end users. So this is one of that certainly I will say appreciate, but we need more because still we are saying that it's 5 Mbps, but whenever it comes to that rural sites, it goes maybe down due to different infrastructural issues. But we want this should be mid 10 Mbps. We are from different forum, and also different stakeholders are also putting their thoughts in a table, so that we can make it more profitable, more accessible, and all that relevant to that of like our mobile data. This we are expecting to our government. We are also giving that that the data that we use per month should be flexible, because someone using within a money that is not using, but his data is going to be finished. Those who are really poor, they do not afford that kind of data capabilities. So that could be beneficiary for them as well as everyone. So if we can maximize the limitation of the data. This is one of the major things regarding to that connection. But yes, still government is also trying to internet to that very every home users. I said that the fiber network structure need to be deployed all over that countries, not only the district levels, it should be in the Thana level as well. So that at first that we can assure that everyone's is connected. Then another challenge that the policy maybe can adopt, I think very important, is the consumer right, because the users we are creating, or that consumers we have currently in that markets, like that e-commerce has developed very rapidly. So their right protections is also very important. We need to think to adopt this kind of policy. It is important to ensure consumer interest to be protected in digital ecosystems such as e-commerce or the digital finance, and it should have a level playing field across that. We are using different mobile financings, very big giant mobile financing institutions, but they are also have a very that competition within the MFS. So these competitions also sometimes deserve the market. So this monitoring system need to be adopted compared to that previous scenario, so that we can users can benefit from it. And also need to give the priorities of digital manufacturing, like a great investment on the private sectors should be made in the digital products, and maybe the opportunity to manufacture digital device in Bangladesh can be so that it has some portions we can reduce the device costs. And also we need to think of predictable policy environment. So the policy, that technology is so fasting things for maybe 1 year back, then it's coming some sorts of new product and new things. So we have to have a mind in our environment, so we can build a business or digital ecosystem environment, predictable policy, so that we can align that with, and we'll need to in keeping in monitoring cells, so we can adopt this with that market as well. These are the things I think very important. And also I earlier said that the mobile penetrations as so high, so that keeping in mind that 5G is coming maybe very soon, so we have to think on this and have to give emphasis on the development of that policy, because it is not only that technology, it's things to conscious about the health, and also so the radiations and other frequencies, these relations to that also need to be a thing for that environment. And one of the things is that for our end user, that we are talking about the digital divided, but and we are talking about that good for people. So the earnings from that poor sectors, they do not have that much of tax. So the tax exemptions and also maybe the utilization data subsidy can be think on that in that policy developments. So these are the things I think need to develop. And I think if you have any more things to know from me respective to my country, I think I could reply to you. I'll get back to you, Priyatosh.
Thank you, sir, for giving us such insights of various challenges like consumer rights, not connected to connected, many things. Really, it's maybe some things are common for every countries. So now I am moving to Nirosa by asking one question. If you are observing the burning issues on the digital economy, So what are the suggestions would you like to propose, or if is there any?
Yeah, so Amrita, Shah, and everybody, all the speakers talk about many challenges. I think when we consider about the Sri Lankan context, most of the challenges also having same things. I think most of them are very specific to all the countries. However, the challenges remain fully harnessing the potentials of the digital economy in the Asia. I think there are some include addressing the regulatory frameworks or ensuring the data privacy and the cybersecurity and bridging the digital divide, specifically in the rural areas. So we have to continuously, I think we have to globally, we have to consider about that, and continuously we have to investment on that, because I think many countries have some different economical issues with the global economic situation. So Sri Lanka also faces similar one, but still, so internet is for everyone. So therefore, we have to make sure everybody have to digitally equipped with all the things. So therefore, I think continuous investment in the digital infrastructure and the digital education. So it's important suggestions I can tell you here. And also policies, related to the policies. I think there are different countries, they are going with some different policies. I think so having a common policies, introduce some common policies, get together, work together with different nations, coming up with policies is another suggestions I can tell you. So it actually growth and impact of the digital economy of the Asia and Asia Pacific and all over the world. And because the future of the digital economy is expected to be dynamic and transformative with several key trends, because most importantly, artificial intelligence. So this will enable most of the automations and personalized services, and also with the blockchain will revolutionize the supply chains and finance transactions and digital identities. And also the augmented reality will enhance the immersive experience, and the IoT will connect billions of devices, creating a network ecosystem. So we have to consider on that. And also when it's come to the data, so data will continue to be a valuable asset in the modern economy, and driving the innovations and the economic growth. And right balance between the data privacy and the data utilization will be crucial, and regulations may involve to protect the individual rights, will fostering the innovations. And also talk about the traditional industries will undergo a digital transformation driven by the automation, connectivity, and the analytics. So business will embrace the digital technologies to enhance the efficiency, and they have to concern about the productivity and the customer experiences. And also efforts to bridge the digital divide and promote the digital inclusion will gain an important factor. I think many initiations has already taken to solve the digital divide and respective issues, but still there are problem is still there. So we have the respective authorities have to consider about, because the technology is continuously changing. So therefore, I think digital divide actually permanently cannot be solve, because with the new technologies introduced, the digital divide always there. But what we can do is we have to, I suggest to continuously monitor what is happening and what are the new technologies coming up. And so it has to have a continuous monitoring and concern about that, and we can minimize the digital divide. I think it's very difficult to permanently solve the digital divide issue. So therefore, we have to continuously monitor, and the government need to work to ensure the equitable access to technology. So that is one main suggestions. And also the connectivity and the digital skills. They have to improve the digital skills. They have to take the initiations, and also they have to provide the better internet access to rural areas. They have to especially concern about the problems with the rural areas. I think all over the Asia and the Pacific, I guess, all the people have that issue. And the promoting the digital literacy, as I told you before, so that is a very important factor. And also create some opportunities for these different groups to sustain in the digital economy. So it's an important factor. And also the digital economy expand the cybersecurity will be a crucial concern, and we have to protect in the sensitive data and secure the digital infrastructure, and we have to combating with the cyber threats. So we have to take some actions, and we have to globally consider about those things, and we have to take collaborative actions and keep on concern on that. And we have to look after all the people who are accessing internet. And so those are the, and also I think collaboration between the government and the different stakeholders will be a challenge, and it's a challenge. But we have to get together, and we have to think about to give a good suggestions and solve that different digital, the internet related problems, work together and collaboratively. We have to solve a lot of problems. Those are some of my suggestions. Over to you, Priyatosh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nirosha. And Priyatosh has handed over the mic to me. Priyatosh Jana, of course, has coordinated this particular session, and we've heard so much from the panelists and speakers from different countries in South Asia. My name is Gunilla Astbrink, and I'm helping to facilitate this particular session. So we've seen in the chat, this is a time to involve the participants online and in the room. If you have any comments, any questions to the speakers, please raise your virtual hand or your physical hand, and we look forward to hearing any of your questions and comments.
Thank you, Gunilla. Thank you for the really moving statements by all the speakers. My question is, sorry, Swaran for the record. My question is towards perhaps all of the speakers. There's a particular concern about this growing trend of elderlies being victims of cyber scams, and so digital the divide is, while it's very real, digital enablement becomes a two-sided sword. Do you think there is room for some legislation, national policies to be implemented that can protect the rights of the elderly in particular? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Swaran, for that particular question relating to protection of the rights of older people in particular. Did any of the speakers wish to answer that? Amrita, please go ahead.
Thank you, Swaran. Very important question, but it has many folds. For example, if you look at legislations, they always talk about protecting people. No legislation even today says they will not. The grievance mechanisms are also in place. They need to be enhanced, but they need to be enhanced with emerging technologies coming in, AI generated thing and the new kinds of cyber threats which are coming. Having said that, the most important thing for, if I'm talking about senior citizens, etc., is the capacity building. Like, how do you use your mobile for services which will protect you? It's something like this. When you take out a child to the road, you teach the children how to walk, that you need to walk on the pavement, you need to cross when there is a green light, for pedestrians to cross. Similarly, the cyber hygiene needs to be taught, because even if you have legislations, the intensity or the promptness with which a cyber fraud happens is much higher. Catching a cyber fraud or getting money back, if it happens, is great, but most of the time you do not get money back. So I think it's more important to have capacity building, have more checks and balances in place, and banks, etc., doing a lot of things in terms of awareness. I think more needs to be done. And it is happening on a continuous basis. So I think that's where this needs to happen, where everyone can work. Government can come up with certain policies, definitely, but I don't think that's sufficient. Private sector has to innovate with checks and balances. Civil society has to play its role in building capacity, etc. So it's an ongoing thing. And even private sector has to invest in these capacity building. So I think it is the entire ecosystem which has to work. Even the families have to support senior citizens that, look, this is how you browse, this is how you exercise caution. Anyone writing to you doesn't mean, they are friends who they are saying they are. So I'll stop it here. Hope I have been able to answer your question to some extent.
Thank you very much, Amrita. Yes, you have covered quite a few points there in regard to older people and assisting in digital skills building and so forth. Bikram, you have your hand up. We are running low on time, so I'd appreciate just a brief comment. Thank you.
I just add very little. Going to Amrita, what she said, in technology, I used to say that there should be convenient versus risks, should be a balanced. So every time whenever we introduce a digital banking product, we are if the risk is higher, then if the convenience is higher, then risks will be lower. So that's how we are try to make the convenient and the risk is balanced way. So for senior citizen, it's very difficult to make them usability of this digital banking product. So in Nepal also we have been facing these challenges to provide digital banking product in Nepal. Just add on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bikram. We have another question or comment from the floor. Please go ahead, Ishaq.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. I am Ishaq from Bangladesh. I'm here as a fellow of APrIGF 2023. I was hearing Mr. Shah Jaidur Rahman about digital progress, about digital policy reforms. He was speaking very well and exponentially. And I would like to add some areas for improvement from my part. I would like to, if I assess the status of inclusion of people of Bangladesh, I would like to consider progress in three fields. Firstly, if I consider accessibility, it's somewhat frustrating because according to a status of a government institute named Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, in 2023, only 43.6% families, Bangladeshi families, have access to internet. So what about the 55.4%? If I What about the status of people with disabilities? What about the people of indigenous groups? So we easily can think how long we have to wait, we have to work. And if I think about affordability, digital affordability, so it's also somewhat frustrating because the expenses on using mobile phone in Bangladesh is very much high. Bangladesh government has imposed 34% VAT on using mobile phone. So it's also an area to improve. And yes, it's true that Bangladesh government has recently introduced a lot of digital services. But if I consider the status of accessibility, as a person with disability, I would say that I went to a lot of banks, but they were refusing me to open an account with the banks. It doesn't mean that I could not open at all. I could open accounts with some banks, but their behavior was not actually welcoming. And still I cannot access credit cards independently, or debit card or ATM booth are also not working in an accessible manner. So, Bangladesh government has launched some digital platforms like mobile financing platforms. These are not inclusive for all sections of people as well. And I cannot use, or many people cannot use still online mobile banking apps or softwares. So I'm sorry to be somewhat it may be somewhat pessimistic, but I would like to be optimistic, and changes have been made in different areas as well. I could not apply for a certificate for myself, but now I can apply for a birth registration certificate for my kid. So we have changes in different fields as well. But it's true that we have to work for long. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ashok, and for those very useful comments. It typically illustrates the digital divide. We've heard about people with disabilities. We've heard comments about older people. We've heard from the speakers about the difference between rural and urban areas, the need for infrastructure, the need for more digital literacy, the exciting new emerging technologies in some countries with AI, for example, but some of the issues there in regard to security and privacy, we need to look at a lot of issues. So there's commonalities between the countries in South Asia, but obviously each country has particular concerns, particular regulatory frameworks and policies and government approaches. And we've heard from the speakers that sharing some of that can assist as well. So there's a long way to go, certainly to bridge that digital divide so that everyone can benefit from the digital economy. But this session has certainly covered off a lot of those particular exciting possibilities, but the huge challenges too. So I'll finish off there and hand the mic back to Priyatosh to say the final words. Yes.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining with us. Thank you to the audience present over here, and people are joining online. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Just a quick housekeeping note. We have lunch now, and but the last session of the APrIGF will be the closing plenary, which will happen at the main room, which is P1 and 2 here, and that will happen at 1:30 p.m. So see everyone back in about 53 minutes.